Well, it is July 29th, 2014, and today is a big day. My painting, Matches Do More Than Light Cigarettes, is going to get picked up in about a half an hour and be shipped off to Susan Beale in New York, my very good friend. And I consider her not only my friend, but teacher. She's been a really important person in my life, especially in the last several weeks, and I have learned a lot from her, and I am so glad that this painting is going to go and live with her. It's been something that I guess we both hoped would happen for a really long time, ever since she came to visit me here and several years ago, and got another painting. So Starflash is obviously, deep in thought about this, but I guess I just wanted to take one last look for myself while it's here, and I have been enjoying it the last couple weeks since the decision was made that it was going to be going, and just kind of want to go over the painting and the details of it. The light is probably not too great. A little bit about this painting. I did this painting, I think it was probably about 2008. And the background is, and the foreground, everything is set up inside a box that's from Tiffany and Company. And that box contains, in the background, you can see these handkerchiefs. And the handkerchiefs were found in this pink box. The outside is white and very unassuming, just says Tiffany and Company. And inside, I found this box when I was going through things at my grandmother's house. And it contains these handkerchiefs that are embroidered, and they say, although it's not visible in the painting itself, they say Faye M. Johnston. And that was my grandmother's first husband and also my father's father. It was a very short-lived marriage, and not really one that produced a lot of closeness between her and him. I guess his name was Edward Johnston, and technically my last name should be Johnston. I shouldn't be Suzanne Falk at all. I should be Suzanne Johnston. My dad ended up taking his stepfather's name. So what I guess I found interesting at that time was that my grandmother had kept this box of handkerchiefs for all these years, and they'd never been moved from the bow. They'd been in the box this whole time, and she had moved with them and brought them with her. And I wish I knew the psychology that went into that or why she kept them, but since she survived the Depression, that might have something to do with it. Or I never really saw my grandmother as particularly a very sentimental woman, but then she also had a lot of qualities that I possess, and sort of keeping of objects and things that are sweet and delicate. And so within this painting are actually a few other objects that I did find from her. The matches that are tucked behind the ribbon are also had a little tiny strip of ribbon mixed, wrapped around them. And this was something that I found in my grandmother's sewing box, this right here. And she would use matches to sort of, save these little strips of ribbon. I never knew my grandmother to be a seamstress, but I'm sure at one point she must have been. And here also, this particular one with this rotten, dried out rubber band that is, wrapped around it. The jar came from my grandmother's house, but that was something that she actually gave to me when she was still there. And right around that same time, I had found this hummingbird. There was a hummingbird that came to be on my patio. And it was, you know, it had been injured, and I had never really gotten to hold a hummingbird. And I sat with the hummingbird until it passed away. And I set it on this delicate purple, oh, there's my dinner, this delicate purple pillow. And whoops, I need to go and turn off my oven. The life of an artist, you know. I don't want my meal to burn. So, oh dear, I think that's okay. I'm going to set this down, and you can, I guess we will look at, for a moment, we're going to look at that sweet potato. Because I don't know how to edit videos and put them together. So, I guess the hummingbird, it had come to me at a time, I mean, I take things like this really, you know, to heart, and I find a lot of symbolism in the day-to-day objects and the timing of things, and that's something that I, you know, I guess that everybody does, but I had decided to, you know, spend this time with that hummingbird, and Starflash is more interested in my meal. I spent time with that hummingbird, and it was important to me that you know, I was there, and I then put the hummingbird in this jar, and I honestly didn't really know if it would, you know, preserve it or anything. And then later I'd found a small, I think a finch egg, you know, and I put that in there too. So it's not a hummingbird egg in there with it. And here I'm going to show you the actual hummingbird. So here's the actual hummingbird. And this is many, 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 many years later now. You can still see how beautiful the coloring is and delicate. And there really seems to be like almost no sign of further change. I recently had a dream about a hummingbird, and I was, this particular hummingbird in fact, and I had been in my studio, and I came out, and the hummingbird was not here on this table. Instead it was, you know, it was over here, and it was sort of sitting on this ledge. And I realized that it was alive, and it frightened me that that something that had been gone for so long was still alive. And I sort of ran away from it for a moment, and my mother was in my front bathroom, and she was washing her hands. And I told her, I said, "Oh my gosh, you know, there's this hummingbird," and I ran back out here, and she didn't follow me, but it was when I came back out in the dream, the hummingbird was down here on the floor, and a man came in that I didn't know, and he picked it up, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, what are you doing?" And he walked over to the door here, and instead of my patio, which is just, you know, really there's nothing out there, right about where that rug is, there was an orange tree growing. Orange trees are pretty common in dreams for me, sort of just growing up out of the cement, but this particular orange tree was covered in netting, and I saw this as a problem, and before he released it, and the hummingbird took flight and flew and immediately was caught in the net. And I went out, and you know, I don't remember if I was sort of scolding him or, you know, giving my opinion, but I remember being upset by it, and I went out and I myself was able to free that hummingbird, and it took off. So that happened just the other day, and it just was really interesting to me, the timing of it. Anyway, so the rooster itself is, you know, is sort of symbolic for, you know, a lot of things, but I guess we could look at it as like a cock, a rooster, you know, it with the bell around its neck and is sort of dressing it up, you know, sort of dressing up the cock. And here's another packet of matches, and it's looping up. I also want to point out that there is the reflection coming off the glass, which is an eye sort of watching everything. I also found these little cake toppers at my grandmother's house. The 3 and the 7, and it was, you know, it was around this time. It was around my 37th birthday when my grandmother finally was, not finally, that sounds horrible, but when my grandmother lived to be, you know, 102 or 103 years old, and you know, which was amazing. I mean, she's very self-sufficient. She lived on her own until she was 101. And it was just sort of interesting to find these sweet little nothings, and I don't know if they were ever used on my cake or my brother's cake. These are definitely like from the 60s and 70s, so it would have to be one or the other. The marble is from, this is a marble that I've used in several paintings, and it definitely has this sort of, you know, explosion going on inside. And the marble itself, the original marble, came from when I was living in Taos, and there was a glass blower that had lived in the place where I was staying before the adjacent house, and he came by to visit somebody one day, and I was the only one home, and I could hear in his pocket he was jingling something, and I inquired, you know, what was it that he had in his pocket, and he pulled out a handful of marbles, hand-blown marbles, and he chucked them into the field that was right there. And I was just sort of like, oh my gosh, what are you know, like, what are you doing? I couldn't believe that he was just sort of tossing them into the field. And he said, oh yeah, you know, I've been doing that for years. Marbles already had like some pretty poignant significance for me from my, you know, my mentor and friend, Erastus Sinati, who has since passed and also died the same year as my grandmother. I found myself while I was in New Mexico. It was even though I was in a relationship. There, you know, it's as it is. It can be very lonely within a relationship sometimes if you have expectations that maybe aren't, you know, realistic, or I don't know. I mean, who knows what was going on at that time? But I mean, it was. I had been recently divorced and was in a new relationship in a new city, and on an adventure that was new to me. So I found myself rather lonely several times, and how I would sort of placate myself during that time was I would walk the dog, and I would go through the field, and every now and then I would find a marble, and on those days I would feel very fortunate and feel like that everything was going to be okay. And that is the true significance of marbles for me. And I have chosen over the years to leave them and give them away and hide them, and you know, and I just couldn't believe it. I found one the other day, and it had been a really, really long time, and you know, I still have it in my purse, and I don't know, it just means a lot. This painting has been shown in Oil Painters of America show a few years ago. It was used in some parts of it were used in some ArtLink brochures for Art Detour a few years ago, and I recently sent Susan a box full of some of the items that are within the painting. I sent her the 7. I kept the 3 for myself, so we each have one of those, and there's a mate actually to this rooster that I sent her, and I sent her one of the handkerchiefs, and I sent her some of the jewels, and just a few other items, and I have the original rooster here. I guess I don't want to get any more lengthy, but here is the original star of the show here. And here's a few of the crystals that I used. And I'm just trying to think if I have the, well, here it is. Here's the marble. So here's the marble that was, let's see if I can get that in a good light. Here's the marble that was used in the painting. And you can see it actually does look like, kind of like an explosion. It's had several runs over the years. I'm trying to get it where it's focused. But this was the one that the glassblower gave to me personally. This is not one that I found, and it's very special to me, and I am very happy that the painting is going to be going to a good home, and it's going to be with somebody that I love and care about and respect, and I hope it brings her years of happiness, and I look forward to visiting it in person myself sometime soon. So that's the story of Matches Do More Than Light Cigarettes. I bet I probably forgot a bunch of it. But thank you, Susan, and thank you, Greg, for believing in me and supporting my art over the years, and it really means a lot. So that's it. I'm going to miss this painting, but I look forward to filling this spot with new stories. So with love, on this day, from me and Starflash, be well, be kind to everyone you meet, and don't forget that there's actually still magic in the world, even if we can't see it all the time.